We've come to the end of the question and answer session with the third and final video, and I have just a couple of questions in this one that required detailed and complex answers, so that's why I wanted to hold these off until the end. So we're just going to kick right into it. Start off with Leon Crazy 59. He has two questions. First of all, you mentioned in a prior video that small games like Angry Birds are ruining bigger publishers. You responded to my inquiries already about this in the comment section of the video, but I'm not sure I understood your logic, so I would like to ask if you could explain your reasoning behind this in your question and answers video. Second question, which I'll answer first because the first one's the more complex answer. If we don't like a series or video that you make, what is the best way to inform you of our displeasure? Would you prefer a dislike, a comment explaining why we don't like the series, or both? Now, for the most part, when people don't like a certain video, it's usually a game type or whatever it is, they just don't watch. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I just posted up the Uncharted Open Lobby highlights, and the video didn't even get 1,000 views. I don't even know if people know about this, but in the video is an actual fail volume. I did a whole complete and new video based on the fail volume videos of all the fails I had during the open lobbies, and the video didn't even get 1,000 views. Now, if you compare that to, say, the Blueprint series, I get close to 4,000 views on the Blueprint video. So obviously, people want to see more Call of Duty videos. They don't want to see Uncharted videos, even if it has a hidden fail volume in the motherfucker. So that's pretty much how I know what people like and don't like, or at least what they want to watch. As far as if people were to say they really don't like a video, I mean, I don't mind. People can tell me. It doesn't matter. If one person tells me they don't like it, but the video gets 200 views, I'm not going to worry so much about one person. If people want to make suggestions, fine. I'm cool with that. They can make suggestions in the comment section. They can hit the dislike button. The dislike button really does nothing, whether you like it or dislike it. You know, people will watch the video, and they're going to hit the like button no matter what. Most subscribers, they watch the video, they turn it on, they hit the thumbs up button, and they go about their day. It's no big deal. But the fact that on my channel, I tend to do a whole bunch of different videos. I do a whole bunch of different series. I try to do things that are entertaining. I don't try to do things that rock the boat. I don't try to do videos that piss people off. Basically, what I try to do is I try to get videos that appeal to all different kinds of people. So if you happen to not like a video, I mean, you can tell me in any way you like. There's really no rhyme or reason to say, okay, this is the one and only way to do it. So as far as I'm concerned, feel free to tell me any way you want. It doesn't really bother me. Now, back to your first question. And I remember that conversation, and I'm glad you asked it again, because obviously, YouTube only has a 500 character limit. And this is a complex answer that needs some explanation. So I even went so far as to go out and do some research on the motherfucker to prove my point. Now, you have to answer this question from the point of view of a gaming company, like, say, Activision, EA, and whatnot. You have to look at the financials of how gaming works to understand the effects of social gaming and how it affects traditional video games. And it's not about ruining big developers. It's about how big developers have to view the landscape of gaming and what makes a profit nowadays. Now, there's no question the video game industry right now is struggling. With the exception of Call of Duty, sales are down across the board. From console sales to actual games, sales are down quite a bit, and there are numerous reasons for that. And it's not just social gaming and shit like that. You know, the economy, the next generation of consoles is coming, the shitty quality of games being put out now, the large library of older games becoming cheaper. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Studios know this, developers know this, and publishers know this, so there's no secret about the money not being made. So when I went and did a little research with some of the financials, I got my figures from a number of sources that included the Ipsos NPD, Consumer Reports, Wedbush Securities, VG Charts, and all that other shit. But what I was looking for was profit margin. And to simplify this and not get too financial for you guys, because I know I'm going to lose you over this crap, profit margin can be defined by how much did you make compared to how much did you spend as a financial percentage. Now, an easy solution to this is if I spend $1, how much do I get in return? If I get a return of $1.50, that means I got a 50% profit margin. For this example, I know the finance people are going to say that's not how it works, but I'm trying to simplify this for the non-finance people. If I return 90 cents off the dollar I spent, that means I have a minus 10% profit margin. I lost money on the motherfucker. So if you look at the profit margins for recent games, you see the dramatic drops in how much they're getting on their investments. Even a franchise like Black Ops returns $1 billion, but it costs hundreds of millions to make, to market, to advertise, and to maintain after launch. So you look to see what companies are getting back for every dollar they spend, and what you find is big name companies outside of Call of Duty have very low profit margins. Now let's just go through some examples so you guys understand what I'm talking about. Black Ops 2 has sold 12 million copies so far, which Activision says is over $1 billion in sales. Now, there are disputes over that figure, but most can agree that $1 billion is at least a fair estimate. Their profit margin is 31%. So for every dollar they spent, they got back $1.31. Again, we're simplifying this. I know that's not how profit margin works, but I'm trying to give an easy financial example for people to understand. Modern Warfare 3 is the best profit margin winner of all the Call of Duties. And of course, this is all bullshit because they fired half their fucking staff. But in any event, they pulled in a whopping 43% profit margin. Most people know this is absolute bullshit because Activision is not counting the salaries of Sledgehammer. They're not counting the lawsuits that cost over this game from the people getting fired at Infinity Ward and shit like that. So that number, that 43%, is not that high. They're just hiding the fucking fact of what they had to pay for the motherfucker. So 43% is way fucking too high. I don't want to hear that bullshit. But aside from Call of Duty, these are profit margins from other recent large-scale release games that you guys are going to recognize. And just listen to these numbers. Halo 4, 9%. Halo Reach, 11%. Assassin's Creed 3, 3%. Assassin's Creed Revelation, 10%. Skyrim, 6%. Uncharted 3, 9%. Gears of War 3, 4%. Battlefield 3, 16%. FIFA 13, 14%. Madden, 11%. Mass Effect 3, 5%. Final Fantasy 13, 2, 1%. Then we have games that went into the negative. Gran Turismo, minus 4%, and the majority of that is because it was in such a long-ass development time that it cost so much money to make the motherfucker. Medal of Honor Warfighter, minus 11%. Ouch! Anyone wonder why that game got canceled as a series? Now you know why. Batman Arkham City, minus 2%. I mean, wasn't that one of the better games of the year? And they lost money on the motherfucker. Far Cry 3, minus 1%. Forza Horizon, minus 1%. Who would have thought Forza would have lost money of all fucking games? Need for Speed Most Wanted, minus 2%. These are big name games that are losing money. And even some recent games, they won't have their sales figures announced, but the new Tomb Raider needs to sell 5.5 million copies just to break even. BioShock Infinite needs to sell 6.1 million to break even, and Gears of War Judgment's going to need to sell 7 million copies just to break even. So you can imagine how much money these studios are investing in these games to get developed. Now, these are all percentages that you're hearing. These percentages are millions of dollars in actuality. Don't just think this is chump change we're talking about. These are millions and tens of millions in profits. But to make that money, they're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions making these games. Now, let's shift to social games like Angry Birds, Farmville, and all that shit. Angry Birds, the original, made 214% profit margin. Now, I'm not joking about this. 214%. Keep in mind, Modern Warfare 3 made 43%, and that number's bullshit. This made 214%. Angry Birds Space is at 104%. Angry Birds Star Wars at 79%. Farmville, 155%. Mafia Wars, 79%. Bejeweled, 91%. Now, what does all of this mean? First off, the dollar amounts that these social games are not as high as the big name games. So Mafia Wars making 79% profit margin does not equal the dollars of, say, a Gears of War 3 that made at 4%. So I don't want people thinking these little companies are making more money than bigger companies. The bigger companies make more money, but they're also spending more money. What they are making is more profit. Mindless games that people will play for bigger profit. Now, you don't think Activision is looking at this and wondering what the fuck is going on? You don't think EA is wondering how to get a cut of this? Matter of fact, EA has already been buying up all these small social gaming companies and shit like that because they want to get in on the action. You don't think that major publishers are looking at this business model of not spending millions of dollars on a game? I mean, hell, we rail Call of Duty each year for using the same engine. Yet, they still spend over $600 million to push their product. Most of that went towards marketing and shit like that. You don't think they want to cut down on that $600 million margin? I mean, think about that for a second. If they would have spent only $200 million to put out the game, they would have saved $400 million. You know, the trickle-down effect this is going to have on games is going to be twofold. First of all, publishers are going to look at areas at where to cut costs. And this is just a natural process. You know, why spend $300 million on a product when you can spend $100 million? Why innovate every year if you could get higher profits without innovating, without actually adding something new? Why spend money upkeeping an online server for an online environment so long? You know what I mean? EA doesn't. They cut support quickly when they need to spend too much money on an old game. Oh, fuck that shit. They cut servers for old sports games real quick. BioShock Infinite, they said fuck multiplayer. They just want a good campaign. No need to spend millions of dollars on servers and development teams and all that shit. Spend it making the best damn campaign ever. And even then, they needed to pump millions of dollars just to cover the cost of excellence. Big time gaming on consoles is not going away. And these social games are not going to surpass video games in sales or revenue. But to pretend that this doesn't have an effect on video game publishers is absurd. Sales are down for a number of reasons. All that I mentioned before, like releasing shit games and consoles and stuff like that. But if their sales are down and casual game sales are going up, someone's going to notice a correlation. Someone is going to look at this and say, hey, wait a second, why do I need to spend all this money if I'm not making that much money? Sacrifice is going to come from somewhere, especially in a big studio, especially somewhere like Activision, EA. They're not going to want to spend $200 million. They'll rather cut down to $150 million or $100 million. They'll cut staff. They'll cut resources. They'll cut time the game needs to be put out. It's like, oh, if I'm giving you guys 1 year, I'm going to give you guys 6 months to put a game out. This is the danger of social gaming. When big companies see that the small guy is making a whole lot more in profit, they're going to try and follow the model of putting out shovelware and putting out crap. If they continue to beat bigger companies at making a profit, not talking about revenue, not talking about dollars, talking about profit. If they continue to show they can beat bigger gaming studios at making a profit, at some point, they're going to have to change their business model. At some point, Activision, EA, Ubisoft, they're all going to look at this and say, you know what? Something's wrong. We need to fix how much we're spending on games because we're not getting as much as we want back in profit. Next question. I don't know what the fuck your name says. Egg my kids or something? Anyway, he would like to know, what is my opinion on the war on drugs and what are my thoughts on medical marijuana? Also, have I ever been arrested? No, I've never been arrested. The unfortunate reality is that the war on drugs is a losing battle. It's a battle no government will ever win because as long as there is a demand for drugs, there will be a drug dealer in business. As long as someone wants cocaine, crystal meth, ecstasy, prescription drugs, you have it, you will have a significant drug problem. I mean, shit, the #1 drug problem right now we have isn't even an illegal drug. Prescription drugs are now the choice amongst people because it's very easy to get away with. You know, governments from the United States to Mexico to places in Europe, they try to crack down on drug use and the rampant violence that comes along with the drug problems. The problem is so prevalent in the world, and drugs are so pervasive in society that you can't eliminate it from every single location. I mean, let's just say we managed to kill every member of a drug cartel in Mexico. What about the ones in Colombia? Or Amsterdam, or Afghanistan? How do you stop small-time growers and dealers? How do you stop home growers and shit like that? The fact is, they make business off the demands of the public. As long as there are drug addicts, there will be drugs, and there will be violence. As long as people want to get high, you're going to have somebody right there behind them to supply them with the method to get high. You know, even if the government decided to do something crazy, like let's say they make drugs legal, there would still be a black market of dealers. There would still be people trying to make a profit off undercutting the government prices, similar to what we had with cigarettes and all that bullshit. There is still a black market for prescription drugs. All you have to do is go to a doctor. Oh, my head hurts. Okay, here's a fucking prescription. The sad shit is that no measure taken by any government will stop the problem. And the really sad shit is that no matter what measures are taken, people that are not on drugs financially pay for it. Taxes pay for government treatment centers. Taxes pay for military use to fight drug violence. Families pay the price for relatives who can't kick a habit, whether it's rehab or paying for their funeral at the long term. I don't see how any government can win this war one way or the other. If they don't do anything, the problem gets worse. The more they do, it still gets worse. So they're fucked no matter what choice it is that they make. Now, as far as medical marijuana, I'll say this right now. I can't stand weed. I can't stand the smell of it. I can't stand to be around it. I don't like to be around people who use it. I can't stand the effects that it has on people who use it. I have never tried it, and I never will try it. That being said, it's a catch-22 for medical marijuana. Right now, it's an illegal substance in many countries, and the few countries that do legalize it have very little research on the medicinal benefits it has. You know, I don't see the harm in allowing some legal drug clinicals to see if there are some healing medicinal purposes that aren't already on the market. You know, I see no problem with testing it out on diseases and ailments if it can cure people. I'm not talking about just painkillers. I'm not just talking about doing shit that other drugs can already do. Like, oh yeah, it stops diarrhea. Oh, we have Pepto for that motherfucker. You know what I'm talking about? I don't see anything wrong with a prescription for the motherfucker if it actually heals people. But, and this is a big but, it should only be from edible marijuana only. You know, much like tobacco, the smoke is an irritant. It's one thing if you're ingesting an item that only affects you, but smoking the shit affects people around you. Other people should not have to smell your smoke. Other people should not be affected by your ailments' remedies. The fact is, if you have a prescription, I don't need to know you have a prescription. I don't need to smell your shit, whether it's a marijuana or a fucking cigar or a cigarette. I don't want to have to smell smoke if you're allowed to use it. And the funny shit is, in the few studies that have been conducted, edible marijuana actually shows better benefits than smoked marijuana. So that's actually a more preferred method by research. I mean, but again, much like the war on drugs, even if you legalize it for the use of medical purposes, people either abuse it or they're still going to find a black market for illegally smoking it. No matter what you do, the catch-22 will always be there. Because if you legalize it, there's still a black market. If you don't legalize it, the black market's going to be there even higher. And if you legalize it, we go back to the war on drugs that I've already said you can't win no matter what you do. Drugs are an amazing problem that we're never going to fully kick until society finally realizes I need to stop taking drugs. If there was no demand for drugs, there would be no drug cartels. If there was no drug addicts to have, they would make no money. If there was no need for cocaine, crystal meth, ecstasy, these drug dealers would have to go out and find something else to make money off of, because if nobody's buying it, then there's no reason for them to be in business. The final question I'm going to answer is actually a question that two separate people asked, but they both asked it in a different manner. So I'm going to show you both questions just to get an idea of what I'm going to be answering. The first question comes from Megamaster592, and he asks, what is your opinion about the swag in YOLO words? Also, what do you think about this generation of teenagers and how is it different from your generation? The second question comes from AVX Gamer, and he says, tell us how you really feel about the current generation and future generation of kids. Now, I'm going to say this right now, and this is going to be my only warning. The can of worms that I'm about to open up is going to chap a lot of asses right now. So I'm going to warn you people, if you have tender feelings, which chances are this generation does, this is going to hurt because the truth is a painful lesson to learn. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything in this rant because the fact is, I'm going to tell you shit that your parents are too fucking worthless not to tell you. Every new generation, every subsequent generation becomes weaker and weaker and weaker than the generation before. The problem is shitty parenting. It's plain and simple. And it's been a domino effect for the past fucking 80 years. Each generation, whether you measure it by a moniker, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, Generation Y, or by 10-year decades, is more fucked up than the prior generation because of awful parenting mistakes. This current generation, let's call it 18 and younger, you guys are the biggest bunch of pussies I have ever fucking seen. Holy fucking shit, man. Your generation is completely fucked, and you have nobody to blame but the parents that are raising you right now, which in fact is my generation. The people closest to my age, to the group of people that I grew up with. These are the world's shittiest fucking parents. And that's because the people that raised us fucked us in the head as well. Now, here's how it works. Back in the 60s was the start of the whole counterculture. People who rebelled against things like the establishment, governments, business, media. You know, the fucking flower children and hippies that didn't want to follow rules and didn't give a fuck about rules and shit. They hated wars. They hated commercialism. They hated free enterprise because it was all about love and peace, man. The majority of these assholes were high off mushrooms, LSD, and any other acid. Basically, they said, we are going to make our own rules. This gave rise to the disco era of the 70s, otherwise known as the Me Generation. This was the most fucked up group of kids possible, raised by parents who were strict. Parents who came from a world of wars and fighting and discipline, but the teenagers rebelled against their parents, like we all did. But instead of unity that was promoted throughout the 50s with the whole my way or the highway approach, the 70s became a generation of me first, fuck you. Drugs were rampant. Sex abuse was rampant. Education was not given a single fuck about, and these kids didn't give two shits about what authority said. It was all about saying, fuck authority, I do what it is the fuck that I want. Which leads to what people term as Generation Y, the 80s generation, where shit gets all fucked up. Us kids never stood a chance. You had 2 decades worth of hippies, disco fuckers, drug users as parents, people who didn't give a fuck about the rules. They didn't care what the fuck you did. They did drugs so you can do drugs. Except they did acid and weed. You know what was the 80s drug of choice? Heroin. Fuck yeah, man, that's some good shit right there. They had to deal with gonorrhea and syphilis as STDs. 80s had to deal with HIV before anybody knew anything about the goddamn thing. We had no discipline, we had no structure, no rules, no accountability, and worst of all, parents that let us do what they wanted because the parents did what the fuck they wanted. The fuck? How can you enforce rules when you break all of your rules in your youth? What the fuck, man? So now you poor millennials, 3 generations ahead of you of hippies, disco, and punks, 2 generations of rule breakers, 1 generation that had no fucking rules. What fucking chance do you guys have? Absolutely none. You have the rise of computers where machines do things faster for you. You have the rise of processed foods because prior generations were too fucking lazy to learn how to cook and do things the right way. I mean, fuck making a dinner from scratch, man. Here's a microwavable TV dinner, little Johnny. Eat this shit with all the poisons and preservatives and crap that'll make you fucking fat and brain dead. Here's all the drugs from the prior generations, plus relaxed tobacco laws. Why? Because they like tobacco so much that they got the laws to bend towards them without knowing it caused cancer. Yes, The Marlboro Man and Joe Camel were cool motherfuckers, but they didn't tell you that shit led to cancer. You millennials are beyond screwed. You were raised by parents that didn't give a fuck about anyone but themselves. You were raised by people that don't want to take responsibility for the fucked up kid they have. Don't believe me? How come the problem kids have today are always the fault of someone else or something else? Think about it. Not paying attention in school? Oh, you must have ADD. Are you not paying attention and you're hyper? Oh, you must have ADHD. Here's some fucking pills to calm you down. Because you know what? It's not your fault. Are you fucking fat? Oh, that's because McDonald's advertises to kids to eat their food. You know, because after all, parents buy the fucking food for you. Then they turn around and they blame McDonald's by saying, oh, their toys appeal to kids. Well, who's not cooking dinner at home, assholes? Who's going out and buying them fucking McDonald's and getting burgers and fries when they could be having apples and juice available in your fucking Happy Meals, man? Millennials grew up with the internet as a way of life. You don't know what the fucking encyclopedia is. You have Google. You don't know what the fuck the Dewey Decimal System is. You have smartphones with barcode scanners. You have no need for textbooks. You have tablets. Hell, you have no need for grammar because writing in text is a way of life for you guys. YOLO swag and all that stupid shit. Just look at the comment section of my videos. How many people write in full sentences? Just look! Look right now! How many people are doing that shit? You think you're entitled to the world giving you everything because your parents already do. You think that just because you ask, you should receive. Don't believe me? Look in the comment section. Hey, can you delete someone and add me on your friends list? Can you do a dual comp with me so my channel can blow up? No, fuck you. Take responsibility for your own goddamn selves once in a while, man. And with the little accountability your parents take, it's stripped away by other candy-ass generations who didn't want accountability in the first place. Spanking isn't allowed. Punishments should be time out. Time out? Time out? You know what time out was back in my day? When you fucked up and you got the shit beat out of you. The time you were passed out on the floor with a concussion was your timeout. It'd be like, yep, that motherfucker woke up after 10 minutes. He had a good timeout. That's how it was, man. You have the internet to protect your toughness. How many assholes you see online that say, oh, you're such a bitch, I would kick your ass. Say that shit to my face. Try saying that shit back in the 80s and 90s. You wouldn't dare communicate that shit to someone back in the day unless you were prepared to get into a fist fight. You weren't going to tell someone to fuck off if you knew a beatdown was coming, but now the internet protects you spineless cunts. And then parents worry about online bullying and internet threats. What the fuck is this, man? Back in the day, you had to worry about real bullies. Kids bigger than you, physically stronger than you, but emotionally fucking crippled. And what did you have to do back in the day to break that cycle? Beat the shit out of them and stand up to them. Now, you fucking chicken shits need laws to protect you from crying on the goddamn internet. You know, you might as well draw a yellow stripe down the middle of your fucking back to show how goddamn cowardly your generation is. Hell, you don't even have conversations with people in real life. If I wanted to hang out back in the day, I had to go over to my friend's house and yell at his window, yo, let's go play ball. Now, you kids just go online, you go play Call of Duty, you go play Minecraft. Yeah, fuck outdoors. I can build an outdoor paradise, motherfucker. And the worst part about this generation is you think you have it tough. You think life is so fucking hard on you. Oh, my phone doesn't work. Oh, my parents want me to stop playing video games. Oh, the school says I can't read for my age. Oh, the gym teacher wants me to fail because I can't put my Twinkie down and run a fucking lap around a track. Oh, I took a naked picture of myself and all the boys at school will see my tits and ass now. Man, this is the most overweight, undereducated, illiterate, incompetent, socially awkward generation yet. You guys get credit for being tech savvy. You guys get credit for being socially aware of human rights, you know, that other generations didn't accept. You know, gender, race, sexual orientation, religion, shit like that. But your parents, my peers, my generation, fucked you up bad. And one day, you'll be raising children, and all the lessons you're not learning right now are going to be passed off to the next generation of fucked up children. My generation was no fucking prize. My generation is the cause of this generation's failure. I do not deny that. But we weren't a bunch of fragile-minded fucks like you guys are. We weren't a bunch of pussies as teenagers like you kids are now. We didn't have structure, but at the very least, we had to accept that when we did shit wrong, it was our own fucking fault. You guys nowadays, nothing is your fault. And part of that is my generation realizes they raised you as fucked up kids and they see how shitty a generation you are and there's not a goddamn thing they can do about it. All it does is reflect on how bad they are as parents. That's all the fuck that it does. And part of that is my generation realizes they raise you fucked up kids and they see how shitty a generation you are and there ain't a goddamn thing they can do about it. The only thing they can do is reflect on where all this shit went wrong in the first place. Now, let me be honest and real for a second right now. You know, if you're a millennial, teenager or younger, and at any point you listen to this rant, you got angry, you got pissed, you felt like you were being lectured, you felt like you were being belittled or whatever, good. You're welcome. Because you know why? You fucking need it. I probably told you something in 10 minutes that your parents haven't told you your entire emasculated life. That you're weak, that you're entitled, and that one day it'll bite you in the ass harder than the swift kick in the dick that I just gave you. Now, if you're a parent listening to this and you realize that you just fucked up along the way, good. You're welcome. It's not too late to go beat the shit out of your kid and make that motherfucker normal again. Your shitty, worthless kids are your own fucking fault. Not anyone else's, not McDonald's, not a pill, not ADD. So take some goddamn responsibility for once in your life and at least make an attempt to fix all the mistakes you made along the way. If you're a grandparent listening to this, sitting back, laughing your fucking ass off, knowing that you caused all of this shit, fuck you. And you're welcome for giving you the laugh that you probably needed today. Because you're just as guilty for your grandkids as you are with your own kids. Had you actually raised my generation not to be a bunch of assholes, had you actually listened to your fucking parents about discipline and structure, your kids would have listened, and your grandkids would have listened. You pissed away a grand opportunity to make a better future, and you guys fucked up more than anything. But I'll say this, if you're that one person who listened to all of this and said to himself, you know something? This motherfucker is goddamn right. My generation is a bunch of assholes. Then there's at least hope for you. You know, it doesn't matter what generation you come from. But if you heard this and you realize that your parents raised you to be a fucktard, then at least my job here is done, because recognizing the issue is the first step to fixing them. But the rest of you guys are fucked. Anyway, that is it for the question and answer session. I'm glad you guys enjoyed being ranted at. So anyway, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be the return of the Blueprint series.